I'm Morgan Allen. I have been at Hopebridge for 2.5 years. I'm a speech language pathologist here. I do tend to work with a lot of kids that need high-tech alternative and augmentative communication devices. And so in addition to what people might think of as like traditional speech therapy, I'm also doing a lot of AAC funding work, treatment, integration, evaluations. AAC, like I said, it's an acronym for alternative and augmentative communication. So it's really anything outside of verbal speech. Something that we know about autism and the autistic experience is that there's just that sensory difficulty and difference. And so sometimes it's more accessible to use these external devices or low-tech options like a core board, PECs, ASL, etc. to get those ideas out, as opposed to kind of waiting where sometimes our words fail. But unfortunately, AAC devices are not always as accessible, which is just heartbreaking. And so ultimately, I see a lot of children who maybe would be able to communicate more complex ideas, would be able to communicate more thoroughly, and they're being limited to verbal speech, or they're being limited to these low-tech options, kind of under the guise of, well, that's good enough. And I would beg the question of, where does this idea of good enough come from? So I'm always telling RBTs, like, I'm not raising these kids to be quiet. And the first goals that I give them are goals like, no, I'm not going to do that. Stop. I don't like that. I love having these conversations because I just feel like with advocacy as a speech pathologist, to introduce to my kids to stand up for themselves and have these new power phrases, whether it's on AAC or I teach them verbally or I teach them the sign for stop, so that they don't have to be kind of overlooked, but instead be an active participant in their world. And it would be so hypocritical of me if I was like, well, I tried and it just wasn't good enough, or like, this is working well enough, and know that that's not optimal. Like, I will not be doing that.